Hi, and welcome to Anatomy Amy Yoga, where we learn and study anatomy through the practice of yoga. In today's practice, we're going to stay nice and close to our mats, close to the ground, as we go over anatomical terms of motion or movement. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. And to do that, we're going to start by laying down face up. So go ahead and just clear a bit of space for your mat, or maybe a towel or blanket, something you're comfortable laying down on. And then come to lying with your legs out straight. Your arms by your sides, palms up or down, your choice. And before we jump into our terms, let's come to our breath. Take a nice, slow inhale through your nose. Hold at the top. And then exhale out your nose, nice and slowly, pausing at the bottom. Take a few mindful rounds of breath here, maybe feeling your chest and belly rise on your inhale, and compress on your exhale. And after your next exhale, we'll start our practice with our terms of flexion and extension. So flexion is simply the shortening of an angle at our joint, and extension is the lengthening of an angle at our joint. So we'll flex and extend our hips to start. On your next inhale, draw one leg up over your hips, and here you're going to be flexing at your hip, shortening the angle of that joint. And then exhale, release your leg down to the earth, extending at your hip as you lengthen the angle of the joint. Second foot, inhale, draw it up the sky as you flex. And exhale down to the earth as you extend. Taking a few more rounds here. Inhaling your leg up, flexing at your hip. Exhale, lower it down to extend. Inhaling for flexion. And exhaling for extension. Pausing at the bottom. Now you're going to flex at both hips, drawing your feet up over your body. And that's so we can bring our attention to our ankles, because our ankles have their own unique term for flexion and extension, and that is dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. So dorsiflexion is the shortening of the angle and drawing your toes towards your shins would be a dorsiflexion. And then lengthening the angle of your ankle, pressing your feet away is plantarflexion. So continue this motion. Inhale, draw your toes to your shins or knees. And then exhale, send the ball of your feet away. Inhale for dorsiflexion. Exhale, plantarflexion. And take one more round, inhaling to dorsiflex, exhaling to plantarflex. And then inhale, toes to shins again, and pause here in dorsiflexion. And now we're going to flex at our knees and our hips as you draw down into a ball. In your ball, start to rock back and forth along your spine, building some momentum so that you can rock all the way to seated. Or you'll cross your ankles and place your palms down in your lap. Let me turn to face you here. So if you have tight hips, it might feel best to sit on a pillow, a blanket, or a bolster, whatever you have on hand. Feel free to grab that. But if it feels okay right here, then you can rest your hands down in your lap, and we'll bring our attention to our shoulders next. So our next set of terms is going to be elevation and depression. So elevation is moving up superiorly, and depression is moving down inferiorly. So with our shoulders, we're going to elevate, draw our shoulders up to our ears as we inhale, and then depress your shoulders, sending them down towards the earth as you exhale. Inhale, elevation. Exhale, depression. Inhale, elevate. Exhale, depress. And take another round or two here, elevating and depressing at your shoulder, your scapula moving up and then moving down. And then shake it out and pause in the center here. And we'll come to our next two terms also with our shoulders, and that's going to be protraction and retraction. So protraction is when the scapula, the wing bones on your back, move away, out laterally, and also a bit forward, anteriorly. So when you protract, it's kind of like a rounding through your shoulders. And then retraction is the opposite movement. The scapula are coming together medially, and they're moving a bit back posteriorly. So if you draw your shoulder blades back and together, you're in retraction. So now we'll do a little flow here to protract and retract at our scapula, at our shoulders. As you inhale, hug somebody invisible in front of you, round a bit through your shoulders. And now as you exhale, you're going to send your elbows back behind you and draw your shoulder blades together. So inhale to hug, and exhale to elbow. Inhale, protraction, exhale, retraction. Take a few more rounds here, following your breath. Maybe repeating the terms out loud. Protraction and retraction. And then pause again, letting your hands come down to your lap. And we have one more term that we'll do here in our seated position, and that is lateral side bending. So similar to flexion extension, it's a lengthening or shortening of the joint, but this time it's through our frontal or coronal plane, or laterally. The plane here divides our body into front and back halves. If you are not sure of planes of motion or movement, you can head over to that Anatomy Amy Yoga video and learn those as well. But here we'll do our lateral side bending through the frontal or coronal plane. Inhale, sweep your arms out, up, overhead. And as you exhale, take your fingertips down towards the earth and take your opposite hand, reach overhead and bend laterally or to the side. Your bottom arm can bend. Inhale, draw back up to the center, and exhale, lateral bending, side bending to the opposite side. And we'll take one more. Inhale up, exhale, lateral side bending, reaching over. And then inhale up, and exhale to your lateral side bending on your second side, reaching over out to the side. And then inhale up and exhale your hands down to your sides. Our next terms, we're going to stay seated, but we're going to come to staff pose. So for that pose, you're going to extend your legs out in front of you. I'll turn around a bit so I'm along the length of my mat here. So staff pose, you want to feel your low belly engaged. Your hands will come down by your sides or resting in your lap, yogi's choice. And let's just review our shoulders real quick. So elevate, depress, protract, retract, and then shake it out. Come to neutral shoulders, belly engaged. And in staff pose, we'll bring our attention to our feet. So our next set of terms here is going to be inversion and eversion. So an inversion is turning the sole of your foot in towards your midline. And eversion is turning the sole of your feet away from the midline or out laterally. So as you inhale, go ahead and invert your feet by drawing your soles to face each other, not all the way, but just in that direction. And then as you exhale, evert by turning your soles of your feet away from each other out to the sides. It's not a large movement, it's pretty small. As you inhale, soles of your feet invert, exhale, soles of your feet evert. So we have our inversion and eversion, I and E, and you can do that with your inhale and your exhale. And then pause back to neutral. Your feet are just facing, toes are facing up to the sky. And now we'll bring attention to our forearms. So go ahead and take your forearms out in front of you, palms facing in. And here we're going to go through pronation and supination. So pronation, quite simply, our palms are going to turn and face down towards the earth. My forearms are pronated. And then for supination, I'm going to turn my palms up towards the sky for supination. Exhale to pronate. Inhale, supinate. Exhale, pronate. And then inhale, supinate. You can think of supination as kind of a scooping of soup, if you will, that you hold in your hands. And then pronate, sadly, we're dumping that soup back out. One more time, inhale, supinate, exhale, pronate, and then take your hands back down to your sides, and we'll take our last two terms in tabletop position. So to get there, take your arms out to one side of your thighs and bend your feet to the other, and then rock forward, coming to hands and knees. Just making sure clothing's good. Now from here, take a moment and feel your wrist just underneath your shoulder, your knees right under your hips, and the tops of your feet pressing down to the earth. Engage your lower belly. And from here, we're going to go over internal and external, or medial and lateral rotation. So we'll do that rotation at our hip because it's a great ball and socket joint, good for rotating. So on your next exhale, extend one leg back behind you. And take a moment to feel both of your hip points facing down towards the earth and your toes facing down as well. Maybe tap your toes down, make sure they're facing down, and then draw your leg back up. From here, we're going to first internally rotate or medially rotate, rotating in towards the midline. So take your toes and your thigh as an extension and turn them facing in towards your midline. And then as you exhale, take your toes and turn away from you, rotating your hip externally or laterally away from the midline. Inhale, internal, medial rotation. Exhale, external, lateral rotation. And then take your knee down. And we'll repeat it again on our second side, taking your opposite leg back behind you, checking that hip points and toes are facing down and neutral to start. And then inhale, internal or medial rotation. And exhale, toes away from your body, external or lateral rotation. Inhale, internal, medial. Exhale, external, lateral rotation. And then return your knee back down. Our last set of terms are here in tabletop as well. And this is going to be AB and adduction, or abduction and adduction. I'll use the letters to be clear. And abduction is a movement of your limb away from the midline, typically also done in the frontal or coronal plane. And then adduction is moving the limb back in towards the midline, adding to the midline, if you will, and that's also through the frontal coronal plane. So we're going to AB and adduct at our hip right here in our tabletop using what's called hydrants. So on your next inhale, take your right knee, take one knee, I'll take my right knee, out to the side and bring your shin parallel to the ground, moving away from the midline. That was abduction. And now I'm going to take my knee and hip and move back in towards the midline for adduction. One more time, inhaling out, abduction, and exhale in, adduction. Taking your second side now, plant that knee down, inhale out to the side, adduction, exhale in, adduction, out to the side, abduction, abduction, and then back in, adduction. From here, lower your knee down and then just walk your hands back towards your shins. And you can pause here at the end of your practice, or feel free to go back to the beginning, maybe go through one more time, saying the terms out loud as you practice. And when you feel you have a pretty good handle, head over to anatomyamyyoga.com if you're not there already, and use the quiz questions and supplemental material I have to go over your anatomy learning through the lens of yoga and a yoga practice. I hope you enjoy. See you in the next video.